So we're in our 4th week of service as the spiritual path. And this has been a really interesting series for me. I've gotten a lot out of it. I've had a lot of takeaways. Have you guys been enjoying it? Yeah. I really enjoyed Avery's positioning of humor as a way to be of service. It's not something I had considered before. So Avery, thank you for helping to shift my thinking. Many of you know and appreciate my laugh. For many years, I was embarrassed by my laugh. Laughing would and still does take me by surprise, and that takes other people by surprise because it's really loud. And somewhere I picked up this crazy idea that having loud fun is not okay. In fact, it might even be sinful. I told you it was a crazy idea. And you know, I'm learning to love my laugh more and more every day. And I'm not a father, but Rick's message really touched me. Since Rick gave his message on Father's Day, I've really been considering the sacredness of all of my relationships. And last week, Pat's story, I'm changing the vibration of this pot. I've said it before, and I will say it as long as there's breath in my body. You are an amazing storyteller. So again, who worked on changing a vibration this week? I did. I put Pat's inspirational message to work as I cleaned my kitchen. It's not just a regular cleaning. We had a flash flood on Tuesday night. And I had some damage. And I shifted my thinking. I posted on Facebook, and Anita said, "Todd, it sounds like you're looking for the gift." And I was. But by Wednesday night, my kitchen was singing. But there was a part of Pat's message that I have to be honest with you. It gave me nightmares. Seriously, Pat's description of the dishwashing area caused me to regress. Last Sunday, I was sitting back here on the back row. You heard me laughing, so you know I was here. So I'm sitting on the back row, and suddenly it's May 1986. Do you know where you were in May of 1986? I had just started my very first job. I was in a restaurant in the New River Valley Mall, and that restaurant was one of Christiansburg's finest restaurants. We even had linen napkins. And the house specialty was baked lasagna. In my mind, I'm certain that we served no fewer than 100 lasagnas every hour. And each lasagna was baked in its own pasta boat. And I had to soak and scrub and sanitize and dry every single one. And I am fairly certain as I look back over my life that I did not change the vibration of a single pasta boat in the more than 5 years that I worked in that restaurant. So, but I do have solace because now I know that whatever I'm doing, it is service as long as I'm doing it with intention. With the intention to raise vibration, with the intention to expand consciousness. And that is empowering. So this week I've been sitting and I've been reflecting on my takeaways from these past 3 weeks, and I've been pondering, what is mine to share about this idea of service as a spiritual path? And my first thoughts centered on the idea that spiritual service is about selflessness. That service happens when we do something without personal benefit or profit. So I'm trying on this idea And then I thought about a time in my life when I was involved with several nonprofits. I was doing a lot to make my community a better place. And what I discovered is I was doing all this stuff because I wanted people to like me. Have you ever done something just to be liked? Yeah. So, I've discovered that this idea doesn't really quite fit. It's not wrong, but it's intellectually immature. This idea that service happens when we do something without personal profit, that would also indicate that if we pay a salary to a spiritual leader, if we pay a salary to our music team, then that says that's not really part of their spiritual service. And I don't buy into that. And you don't have to agree with me, but that to me is in direct conflict with what I know to be true about prosperity. So I hit a roadblock on this topic. I hit a roadblock about service as a spiritual path. And here's my block. To believe that the idea of service to others, and the idea of service to others means I believe in duality. I don't believe in duality. It's a great paradox of metaphysics. In the relative, right now, this physical plane, we are all individuals. But in the absolute, the truth is, there's only one. There's only oneness. And since we're talking about the spiritual path, I have to talk about the path of oneness. And when I face a paradox like this, or when I want some divine guidance on an idea, I practice bibliomancy.
What?
Bibliomancy. Book cracking, or Bible cracking. Over the years, I have accumulated a treasure trove of books. I love my books. They line shelves in my house. They're stacked in corners. I still find boxes of books that I haven't unpacked from my most recent move. And I have friends that want me to release some of my books. And, I occasionally will cull through the stacks. These are my books. This is what I collect. I love my books. And so I went to my bookcase and I asked Spirit for guidance. And my hand was drawn to a volume that has been on my bookcase for more than 8 years. And I've never even opened it until now. So I randomly opened Neil Donald Walsh's The New Revelations, A Conversation with God. We just opened it up. And this is what I read. And this is Neil. If self-interest is the highest interest, and it should be, then everything else you've been saying here falls by the wayside. And this was the response. Only if you have a very limited definition of self. And so we come full circle. If your false beliefs that limit your definition of the self, when you see the self as including all others, your definition of self-interest expands, and the world changes overnight. I said this to you very early in the conversation, that the problem now facing the world is easy to solve, and the answer is obvious. Simply enlarge your definition of self. And that was the guidance I needed. When you see the self as including all others, your definition of self-interest expands, and the world changes overnight. Service is about doing what is right for you to do. Not the ego you, the expanded self you. That divine part of you that we call Christ. I am not my skin bag any more than I am my car, or any more than I am my house. When I expand my sense of self, everything I do for another, I realize I am doing for me. Not the ego me, but the part of me that is I am. And the same is true for you. Whatever you do, whenever you do it, when you do it from the expanded sense of self, you are walking the path of sacred service. And you know what? When you give of yourself from that expanded place, you might get something in return. You might get a smile, a hug, a gift. You might even get a paycheck. And as I reflected on this idea this week, it occurred to me that just maybe spiritual service is the law of circulation in its fullest form. Consider this. Spiritual service is the law of circulation in its fullest form. And this is exciting stuff for me because I'm fascinated by ideas, and my hypothesis that spiritual service is the law of circulation, well, it kind of parted the clouds for me. I look for connectedness in all things, and I want to share the path that I followed to test my hypothesis. And a lot of this will be review if you've read a lot of books around here, you've been to talks. But this is my path. There's only one presence in the universe, everywhere equally present. We know that, right? Only one presence in the universe, everywhere equally present. We also know that this presence is love. And love is all there is. We also know that we are created in the image and likeness of that presence, the Creator. Therefore, we are creators. We are creators who are called to love God, to love our neighbors, and to love ourselves. And when we expand our sense of self, we understand our connection and can fully grasp that God is all there is. And so service is now about creative self-expression of the love that is the truth of our beingness. Service is about your creative self-expression doing whatever is right for you to do. And I have some examples for you. Avery talked to us a few weeks ago about humor. And what Avery was really doing, Avery, you were creating joy. He was knee-deep in the creative process, and he was bringing us to laughter. Joy is the place our hearts come alive, and we know the power of gratitude. And knowing gratitude can sustain us through flash floods and hurtful words and sometimes loneliness. Avery creates joy. And Rick talked to us about fatherhood. But with his family and with this congregation, Rick was and is creating stability. Stability is the foundation of our being able to gather here and study these principles week after week. Stability is the foundation of our sense of safety. And Rick creates stability. And I feel safe. Every week, Victor Tynes greets us at the door. And you know, Victor creates the magic of pure acceptance. My friend Mary Ann is ducking her head in the back. Mary Ann's an artist, and she teaches me art class every week. And Mary Ann creates beauty. And the lives around her are richer for it. Nancy sits at this piano and makes music. And really, she's creating resonance. Each of our cells vibrates in an amazing symphony of sound and color and emotion. And her creation lets us feel this divine life lighting up our skin bags. We experience our unity with Spirit. We experience our oneness because Nancy is creating resonance. And Pat told us a story about changing the vibration of a pot. And that changed the vibration of the camp. And that changes the vibration of the world. And while Pat was busy with a scouring pad or with weaving a magical story, most importantly, Pat was creating community in that kitchen. Pat creates community here with us every week. So I believe that service is about creative self-expression as you do whatever it is that's right for you to do with an expanded self-awareness. And this is the glory of oneness. Service is about our creative self-expression to do whatever it is that's right for us to do. And whatever is right for you to Glenn is going to be different from what is right for Nancy. And what's different for Steele and what's different for Elizabeth. But here's the thing. We have an opportunity and we have an obligation to find what is right for us to do. We have an obligation. You've all, if you've been here a while, you've heard Elaine talk about spiritual gifts. What is it that makes you who you are? What are the gifts of spirit to you? Do you know? You know in here. You know in your heart. And so, pay attention to your values. What matters to you most in this human experience? See, I think Elaine creates clarity. She did for me when she had me complete an exercise. And so I'm going to invite you to try that exercise in your time. Okay? Elaine told me, write down your 5 core values. Write down your 5 core values. And then beside each one, write why. And these are my answers. Creativity. Creativity is how I experience the divine. Passion. Passion is where I connect to my soul. Compassion. This is how I know I am connected to others. Learning. Learning helps me make sense of the world and of myself. And finally, adventure. Adventure is where all my other values collide so that I may experience joy. So I got caught up thinking about my first job and washing dishes and all the jobs I've had since then. I counted my jobs this week. Since 1989, I've had more than 36 job titles. Now, some of those were with the same company. But as I reflect on the journey of this skin bag, started even before I was scrubbing pasta boats, I realized that my life has been and is an ongoing adventure. My titles have changed, but I've always been guided by my values. And I bet the same is true for you. Whatever task you're currently doing, whatever title you may now claim, it may change. But your core values are constant. They may deepen. But they give shape to the service of your life. So what are your values? What is right for you to do now? Your service is important. And it's important to this congregation. Whatever you have come into this life to create, it is imperative to the people sitting around you that you created. Whatever is right for you to do, it's imperative that you do it. And here's why. There are 2 ways to grow a church. There are 2 ways to grow a church. The most common is with fear and condemnation and a carrot on a stick promise of a possible reward if you are deemed worthy. The other is by building people up, lighting their soul with purpose. It teaches the inherent worth of the individual and shows them that prosperity is their divine right. It invites people to walk together on a journey to remember our oneness. Guess which way we're going to grow here. Okay, but there's a catch with this. We can only grow as much as each of us is willing to do what is right for us to do. We can only grow as much as each of us is willing to do what is right for us to do. So I don't know how you are called to serve, but I know you are called. Spiritual practice, spiritual service is the practice of oneness. So whatever is right for you to do, please put on your doing shoes. And I invite you to come have an adventure with me. And along the way, we might even have lasagna. And because my relationship with you is sacred, I'll even do the dishes.